All right, there we go. Hello everyone, how's it going? Team here, and this is BxJS livestream. And today I want to show you something pretty damn cool. So I've been working on a project that involves GraphQL and uses Apollo client for managing the GraphQL connection essentially. So queries, subscriptions, whatever you can imagine. And one of the things that I discovered is that it actually allows you to manage your local React state using purely GraphQL. So you don't really need any other state management solution like XState, MobX, Redux, whatever else basically, right? So you only need Apollo, which is pretty damn cool. So, I thought I would just show how it works, and maybe it will help someone simplify their app, because for us, essentially, it allowed us to throw away the X state and replace it completely with just a couple of GraphQL queries, which is pretty damn amazing, to be honest. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take our GraphQL mongoose example that we did some time ago and basically expand on it, because I want to spend time building this same thing essentially again. I'm going to add the front end to it, and I'm going to add the Apollo client essentially with React and show you how exactly does that work. So I'm going to start by cloning this mongoose example and then just moving it, renaming essentially, and yes, expanding from there on, right? So let's call it Apollo client example. Then go in there, remove git folder because we don't need that. And then we do git init. So it's going to be the new folder. And then I'm going to fire up the code here. Okay, it decided to open a new version. That's fine. I can close the one I had opened before. So we got this bit. So let's just quickly double check what we got here and maybe adjust some readme and okay, we can do readme later, but we definitely can adjust this. So Apollo client example is what it's going to be, blah blah blah. So this is fine. This is going to be our server. I think I'm going to go with a basic create React app probably for the front end, because I don't want to spend too much time doing any of that stuff. Again, the same reasoning basically. So let me just fire up npm install. And once we're done with that, we are gonna add, I guess, roll up the create React app projects as nested project here. And then once we are done with that, we are gonna extend the schema we have over here in the database just a bit so that it actually fits. What do we actually have here? I don't remember. So we got nodes, and maybe that is enough. So we got nodes and we got nodes collection, right? So we might as well use that, because there is some relation, and we basically can view collections and then store that in memory, and then basically show the nodes for a specific collection, which I think should be relatively straightforward, but on the other hand should demonstrate how does this whole setup works. Hey Amina, welcome to the stream. All right, so let me think. I installed the dependencies, that's great. I guess let's start with, don't want to create React app, or I wonder if I can just use parcel. I'm a bit, on one hand, I really like the parcels idea of, zero setup bundler. On the other hand, every time I try to use it for something complex, it always ends up having some caveats, issues that require workarounds, which is annoying. So I guess, you know what, let's just go with create React app. I know that it's going to work for sure, and it's going to be, well, basically battle tested solution, right? Okay, so let's do that and paste it here and call it, let's call it just front end, right? So I'm just going to be very creative here. I'm going to scaffold the front end. And once this is done, we are basically gonna, so we have our GraphQL API now. I also need to start a MongoDB in another tab. So we actually have the MongoDB running. I'm just going to do that. We don't care about the first tab anymore. And once this is done, so basically we're going to create a simple front end that will render our collection. So now we have the nodes, right? And we have the nodes collection. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a front end that allows you to pick the collection and then edit the node, right? I don't remember if we did the editing last time, but probably yes, we did. Okay. I think, didn't we have a front end last time as well? I don't remember. Or did I just use the queries? Man, I don't remember anything. That is just freaky. Okay. Anyhow, we're going to basically do a very simple front end that's going to use as I said, Apollo for managing that. And we're going to use the local state inside of Apollo that will allow us to, well, manage the state without actually relying on any third-party options, which is a pretty cool thing. Okay, so we got this scaffolded. That is cool. So we got this whole thing rolling. Maybe that's not the best project structure, but you know what? For now, that will do. I think, yeah, I think we're fine. So what I'm gonna do is, I remember there's an option. So create React app. There's the proxy option, and we are gonna plug that in and essentially turn that on for our server, so that basically I will have. So there is a way to proxy the whole thing without you know, without setting up cores or anything like that, which is just straight up annoying usually. All right, which means that I can now open another tab. Let me just make this a bit bigger. There we go. Come on. So projects, BxJS, Apollo client. So here we can say npm start. That should no, there is no start command. What the hell? I probably forgot to add one last time. Cool, yeah, sure. Node index. So we are gonna run our server here, right? So npm start. So this is gonna be our GraphQL server. Okay, there's some warnings from the node 14. That is perfectly fine. So let's just make sure that our GraphQL API is working. Is it not 8080 here? What is it? Oh, it's 3000 actually. Okay. So I guess we should change that a bit. Hey, Grisrock, welcome to the stream. All right. Yes, I guess we should tweak our server to be on ports 8080 just for the, because the Create React app starts on port 3000. So we're going to tweak that a tiny bit. So we are now on port 8080, which means that this is our GraphQL API, right? So this works perfectly fine. So let me see, what do we have there? So we got our GraphQL, we got, and there is, okay, where is my, so query test, where is my auto completion? What the hell is going on? Schema. Do we actually have any schema? What is going on? You're just talking to me about this, so good to see it in action. Yeah, I mean, I just really want to share that because it's a really, really cool thing. Response not successful, receive status 404. What is happening right now? Why, what, did I just break it? Okay, wait a second. So that should be working, right? We have the database, we have, so let me just double check the code to make sure that actually, so we got the Apollo server Fastify, we got the GraphQL schema here set up with composed with mongoose. Yes, that looks perfectly fine. We got our, all the setup, all the wiring. Yeah, so this, all of that looks, oh, yeah, no, okay, that looks fine as well, right? So it should be localhost. Okay, so why are we, what is happening here? So if I, let me just, right, first, as usual, nothing ever works from the first try. So we're gonna try to figure out what the hell's going on. Right, so server listening on 8080. Why is there 2 logs? Okay, that is fine. So if we go here, can we get test response? Okay, response not successful, received 404. Server cannot be reached. Is there just something in my cache or something? Because the server that we use, no, there is API GraphQL. What did I, it seems to be loading the wrong thing. GraphQL server create handler. Yeah, okay. So it looks like there's some config from my like production app that I'm working on daily, and it just interferes with whatever. Yeah, okay. So it seems like it's just a cache thing, not even a cache, like a config. There we go. Now we're working. Okay, cool. So, right. So we got collections, right? And there's name, ID, and notes. And then notes is this name, body, group, collection ID. Cool. Okay, so right now, okay, yeah, we don't need that. If I do this, we should get our test collection and test node. That is perfect. Okay. I remember we built some sort of a front end as well, but hell if I remember which one. But we're going to build a new one anyway. So that is perfectly fine. Was it? Maybe it was in the index. So no, I don't kind of vaguely remember we were doing something like this, but whatever. Right, so this now works as expected. So it was just my caching issue. Now we got the server running, so we can go to our front end, right, and do npm run develop, right? So this should start. No, what? Not develop. Was it? What was it? Start. Okay, it's just npm start. Okay, start. So this should start our create React app. Should boot it up. Should fire it up over here. So we don't need this anymore. We don't need that anymore. All right, cool. So this works as expected. Now we can get cracking and can kill whatever we don't need. So first of all, we don't need this logo. Index, React streak. Oh, cool. They are now started by default in streak mode. That's nice. So index.js is fine. We don't care about the testing right now. We don't care about this thing. So, okay, we don't need that. We don't need that. Okay. So, okay. App, just something. Okay, that should render, right? There we go. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually include I'm gonna include Tailwind, but I'm not gonna, because currently, as I think I already discussed it a couple of times, the problem with Tailwind is that it requires post.css, and accessing post.css from Create React app is a huge pain in the ass, unless they've changed it and maybe I missed the point. So instead of doing the whole damn setup, what I'm gonna do is just throw it in as a link. So I'm just gonna do that, and we're gonna have the Tailwind included. Obviously, that's, you know, suboptimal, but whatever, that's perfectly fine. And we're gonna roll with that. Hey Steven, yes, I've started streaming on YouTube as well, like about a month ago, I guess, and now I'm doing it to like 3 platforms. So there we go. All right, so we got the Tailwind. I guess we can just say, so let's do like some padding, and make it a flex. Perfect. Okay, cool. So now we got our app. We need to set up the Apollo, right? I guess let's commit whatever we have right now, because I keep forgetting doing this on stream like at the right times. This is a bane of my existence. Okay, a bit bigger. There we go. Git status, git add. So make sure that we've added things that we actually want. That looks perfectly fine. Hey, Smaller Brute, welcome to the stream. All right, git commit initial project setup. Okay, sign my commits. There we go. Right, so let's add the Apollo GraphQL. So we don't need Tailwind right now. Start tutorial. Yes, please. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the Apollo client, and I'm going to use the beta version they have, because first of all, it's stable enough. Like we've been using it for quite some time for our staging version. It works perfectly fine. And second of all, it just has a nicer API. So we are going to go get started with that. And we are going to install. So I need to go to the front end, right? I probably should do that over here and then interrupt the current build as well. So we need the Apollo client and we need the GraphQL packages. We are gonna create this client by copying this over here. So I'm gonna go source. Let me split that in a new. So let's create a components folder. Apparently I cannot type. We're gonna throw app in there. So this is gonna be components app, right? This looks fine. Okay. And then I'm gonna create the GraphQL folder that is gonna have client. All right, so we got our client. So the way it's done, I guess we can just do this. So the way it's done is pretty straightforward. You set up cache. In this case, it's very straightforward in memory cache. And then in link, you create the HTTP link. So in our case, we are only going to have the HTTP link. You can have other links, like a WebSocket link, for example, if you want subscriptions and real-time updates. But, you know, we're not going to go crazy. We're just going to go with a very basic setup and localhost 3000 GraphQL. So we're going to have our URL that is pointing to the same exact server that we have here. And we are just going to use that as is, basically. Okay, cool. So now we need queries. So let us create a file called queries.js. So I just prefer to keep queries separate because you sometimes might need to use them more than once, for example, in tests and in component creation. So we're going to have a separate file for that. So I'm just going to copy the whole damn thing here. on now. Right, and right, okay, so we got that, we got this. This is our query. Let's name it somehow. So we will have collections. I guess let's call it get collections and be it like all capital. Right, this is going to be GQL. Right, and this is definitely a wrong query. So we are going to go into our GraphQL interface and tweak it a bit. Hey, Ahmed, welcome to the stream. All right, so first of all, we are getting collections, right? So this is going to be query get collections. And instead of all of that, we're going to say, okay, save this. We don't need nodes here. So we're going to fetch nodes in a different way. So basically, we're going to get collections that has ID and name. That's basically all we care about, right? Okay, and then we are going to get, I think we will have to modify the backend just a tiny bit for our current use case to work out because it's a bit contrived, but you're going to see where I'm leading. All right, so we're going to have the nodes here with ID, name, group, body. That is good. Hey, Gregor, welcome to the stream. All right, and this query will have to be modified because right now it basically gets us all nodes, which is not useful. So we're going to actually modify this query to get our nodes by the collections. We're going to filter them by collection, which is relatively easy. I think maybe we wouldn't even need to modify stuff, but we're going to see. Okay, so let's say we got these nodes, we got this collection ID, query variables. Let's say collection ID. So that I just want to see if there is default way of doing that because I don't remember if the GraphQL, sorry, what do you call it? The GraphQL Compose gives you this way. Query, and then we got store collection ID is mongoose. What? Yes. Come on, where's my auto suggest? Okay, whatever. You know what? I can type myself. And then nodes filter, and we got collection. No. Okay, so it does not give us a filter. Okay, what is our filter options here? Name, body, group, ID, IDs, operate. Okay, so it gives us the filters by strings, but not by group. Okay. Right, so we will have to tweak the backend just a tiny bit, but that's fine. That's not a big problem. Anyway, so we got this. Now we need to connect the clients to React, which is done via the provider. I'm just gonna hook it up on the top level. So I'm just gonna wrap everything in follow provider. There we go. And then we have to say that the client is client, and then we need to import from, so this is going to be what GraphQL client, right? And we export the client, I believe. There we go. So this should do it. This basically wires up the client via the context, right? So whenever we're using the hooks or anything within our nested components, they will be automatically using our top level client. So you don't have to specifically pass it around, basically, which is, well, just annoying, right? I think you had the wrong port to the client URI. Did I? 3000. No, I mean, I added 3000 specifically so that we don't have to deal with the course. And I've added the proxy thing to the create React tab so that it will automatically proxy our GraphQL requests to the our backend, essentially. So, I mean, it's just the point is basically not dealing with course and not having to add the whole, you know, like the course headers, handling all that kind of stuff because it's just straight up annoying. All right, now here comes the cool bit, UseQuery. So here's how it works. Here's our component. So I'm just gonna, I guess we can create our, not the folder. We can create the collections component, right? And we can say, okay, so we got export default function collections, right? And then here we're gonna have our get collections, right? This is our query. So UseQuery is, why is there no suggestions? Why you, okay, first of all, import React from React. God, come on, I cannot type today. Okay, so we got the React and we need to import, what? Where's my Apollo? Did you not? Oh, I guess. Ah, come on. Okay, I know what the problem is. The problem is the VS Code. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What is going on? Oh, come on, VS Code. Why you have to be like this? Okay, so VS Code is locking my front end again, so I'm just gonna have to do this. It's like I cannot wait for the VSL2 to be released. I think it's like 10 days or something until the official release. And I'm so tired of those bugs with VSL where it just locks your file system and does not allow you to do like npm install or move files around until you just close it. Which, you know, is not incredibly bad, but it's just annoying as hell. So VSL2 cannot come fast enough. All right, hopefully this works. And then we can actually continue. Read my message, you missed it. Apologies, let me have a look. What is the design pattern for bootstrapping large-scale application? EA dependency injection. I mean, that's so basically my approach is usually just start with the minimal working version and then expand from there. And the same goes for like architecture, design, whatever. So you just start, you make it work, and then you try to figure out, you know, what are the bad parts and what are the good parts, and then just expand from there. There's no like definitive solution to this. There never will be because it's very use case specific. Let me have a look. Grishwalk, the speed gains. Yeah, I've seen it's like 7-8 times faster than the VSL1 for some stuff, which is just bonkers. Okay. Oh, I actually opened the front end, which I guess is perfectly fine. npm start. Okay, let's go back into the app. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What is going on now? Module. Oh, come on now. Damn it. Why do you have to be like this? Right, so I guess I just, oh, right, because goddammit, it used yarn by default and I used npm to install the module, so it's probably screwed everything up. Right, let's just, I guess, stick with one thing and use yarn, maybe? Because it also tends to be quite a bit faster in the VSL. So let me just very slowly kill the node modules folder, and then we're gonna reinstall them with yarn, which is gonna be a bit faster. And then we are gonna finally get back to coding the damn thing. So let me kill the package lock, and then we're gonna do yarn. Okay, so this should, it's just, man, it's bonkers that the yarn is faster in VSL than the npm. It's kind of like when you code on Linux or, you know, macOS or whatever, it's not as noticeable, but here is just like night and day. Hey Wise, welcome to the stream. It has been a while since I've seen you on my streams, man. It's been going fine, you know, all same. I can't really complain. How have you been doing? It's like, well, what's up? Have you not been around because of the work and stuff? Because I want to hope that you have not been around because things are good, not the other way around. All right, yarn start. Let's just go with yarn and not screw anything up. Come on, please start working. So load up, please. Am I now? Yes, yarn performance is a lot better in VSL for whatever reason. Like I honestly don't know why, but it is just like a lot faster. All right, so we got that. We hooked up. Let us continue from here. So we hook up the client. All right, we started creating the collections component. All right, there we go. So it says UseQuery is not there. And come on, initialize our JavaScript language features. Please give me my auto completion. Yes. Fetching TypeScript IntelliSense. Come on now. There we go. Okay, cool. So we imported that. Here's the magic, right? So all you have to do to query your GraphQL backend is use query, pass it a query, variables if there are any. We're gonna touch on that a bit later. You get 3 variables. You get loading, you get error, and you get data. If it's loading, well, it's, you know, a loading state, so you show a loading indicator. Now we can just make it a tiny bit fancier here and say, okay, class name is gonna be padded, text is gonna be large, and let's say I don't know. Yeah, no, you know what? It's fine. Okay, and if it's an error, we're gonna do this. Why is my TypeScript autocomplete again not working? Okay, P2, text Excel, text color red or something, right? Okay, and then if it's data, for now, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna say I don't really know what the data is. All right, I don't remember what the data is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do my good old trick of JSON stringify data and put it into the pre-tag, because that's what I always do when I start building components. And then I just sit and look at it. Okay, so we did that. And essentially what we have to do now is just say, okay, import collections from collections, right? And then here we just say, okay, cool, collections. We don't even need that, right? And now theoretically, there you go. So it loaded the collections for us, and literally all we had to do is just use this one hook. And all of that is like, let me just throttle the, I just want to show you how cool that is. So I'm throttling the connection now, right? So when I reload, it's gonna take a few seconds for it to fetch the actual things. We're gonna see the actual loading state. Well, okay, once it loads the actual app itself, which I probably should have unticked the disable cache thing, but whatever. There we go. So we actually have the loading state, and we actually have the collections there, and all of that is just in like 4 lines of code, which is just bonkers. Let me have a look at the chat real quick. How's the project you were working on? Last round, you started working with a startup. Working in the company does tax software and human malware caused a lot of headache. Oh boy. Tax deadline here got extended, so it's been hectic compared to the most tax seasons. I mean, can't imagine. With the current time, is just everything is insane. My work has done great. I mean, one of the reasons I'm showing this off is because we're using that in a current project, and it works amazingly well. Anyway, so we got these collections now, right? So let's render them in a more human readable format, I guess, because the JSON is great and all, but we don't really like, it's not how humans interact with stuff, right? Okay, so let's say that this is flex column, for example. Why is it not? Oh, because I probably don't have the tailwind added to the project, right? This is probably why it doesn't give me any other suggestions. Okay, cool, that's fine. We can do it ourselves. Okay, data. So what was the thing there? Data collections. Okay, so data collections map. Okay, first of all, I think they, you know what, just to be safe, I'm gonna use the optional chaining just to make sure that the collections are actually there. And then we have the collection, so it's gonna be another div. And so this is gonna be collection name, and then here key is gonna be collection ID. Flex let me think, text LG and underscore. What, man, I really need to. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do yarn add tailwind dev, just because I want the damn auto completion. What's up? Okay, chaining syntax is a lifesaver. Like, man, it simplifies the code so much. Okay, yarn starts. Let's start this back up. So I think now it should theoretically give me like proper auto suggestions for the tailwind. All right, so there's our test collection. First of all, that actually should be clickable, right? So we should say on click, and this is gonna. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we need to select collection, and this is gonna be collection. So there we go. So we need to introduce this select collection function. Select collection. It takes in collection and then does something to it. So here's the cool thing, right? Okay, so we can kill that. Where's my Tailwind auto suggestion? There's a VS Code. I mean, I have the VS Code plugin for Tailwind. That's the thing. And for whatever reason, it's not kicking in right. I don't understand. Can it be? What are you using for the backend? So the backend right now is from the previous video I did on a GraphQL. It's Fastify with GraphQL Compose and MongoDB. Why is my Tailwind thing not kicking in? Wait a second. Tailwinds. No, it's not here. Did I? Do I have it installed? Maybe it just went away or something? Tailwind. I think I have it. Right, there you go. There it is. Okay. Tailwind CSS, blah, 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 blah. So what is going on? CSS preview. So it should, I don't understand. Okay, you know what? It doesn't even matter. Cursor pointer. I think I remember most of the Tailwind classes by heart by now, but I still like don't remember some of them. Okay, so it's just underline. All right, so this should give us a nice overable collection. Cool. So yeah, there we go. We did that component. So now let's do the node component, right? So let's do the, okay, we were going to have 3 components. We're going to have a nodes, quick reload. That's actually a good point. Reload window. There we go. Give it a shot. Maybe just need to reinitialize it because I installed the Tailwind after I've started editing it. Okay, so let's see, text. Come on, where's my auto suggestion? Text, nope, still doesn't work. You know what, whatever, doesn't even matter. Okay, cool, notes. So we're going to the notes thing. Why are you screaming? Okay, so we got the get notes, right? So in this case, it's gonna be select node, right? And then we're gonna have the node here, and there's gonna be loading, error, whatever, get, so there's gonna be notes. And this one is going to be nodes. This is going to be node ID. Select nodes. Okay, fine. This is going to be very similar. Node name. I think we had the name. Where's my query? So we got the name, body, group. Okay, cool. Yeah. So we got that. And if I, where's my app? If I render right, come on, nodes. Why can't I type? This is the question of the century. No, import nodes from. Why am I so bad at this today? Nodes. Okay, cool. So now we should have the nodes thing, but obviously, right? Okay, first of all, that looks terrible. Let us do some formatting, I guess. So div class name, just some separation over here. So this is gonna be P2, this is gonna be P2, this is fine. All right, so cool. So now we got this collection, now we got this node, but this is like, this will render all the collections and all the nodes disregarding of whatever we have selected, right? So what we actually wanna achieve is when we click on a collection, we wanna render the nodes for current collection, right? Let me have a look at the chat real quick. Does it require JS6 extension instead of JS? No, it worked for me in my, like, when I do in the work project, it works perfectly fine in JS. I no idea why it doesn't work. It's common things to happen with Tailwind plugin. Okay, so I guess it's like it just happens sometimes, but then other times it works perfect. You know what? Whatever. It's not critical. I can live without it. Anyway, so we want these get nodes, but we actually, as I said, want to get nodes for one specific collection, right? So we want to introduce this collection ID here, which is the Mongo ID. And then nodes, we want to add the filter argument. So to do that, apologies, we want to open the code over here in our server. Maybe I should just open it from the root folder and don't care about that. Let's see if that works. Okay, so here we need to modify our GraphQL backend a bit. So I'm going to stop the front end, stop the backend. And what we need to do is we need to go to our GraphQL setup and say that our nodes here should have, hell if I remember how to do that, GraphQL compose. We want filter, right? So I remember there was it in the plugin itself? They had an example somewhere. I like remember for sure because I used it. And there was filter. There we go. And so, okay, this is relation. Filter, blah, 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 blah. Come on, you had examples somewhere. I remember that. Filtering records. Come on. GraphQL, compose, mongoose, filter. I remember seeing this somewhere. Ah, what is F? No. Web results, yes. And was it in a Git repo or something? Oh boy, come on. I know that it is somewhere here, and I remember it was relatively easy to do. I mean, we could always like wrap it with our custom resolver, but I don't want to dive that deep. And if I remember correctly, it was relatively easy to actually do that. Maybe it was in the GraphQL compose itself. GraphQL compose mongoose, blah, blah, blah. Relations. So if we search for filter, and right, I forgot that I have this. filter. Yeah, there we go. This is what we want. So add filter arg, and if we search for that here, I think they had examples. Okay, you know what? We can just do that, right? There's a commits. There is issues. Operator or does not work with add filter arg. Type string value. Okay, so I think it should be sufficient just to say that we add filter arg as let me think. So there's issues or conditions, sub documents, filtering, how to exclude fields, how to add a near to filter. So that's got to be example in one of those. Schema. This is a schema. Geo add filter arg. There we go. This is a good example. We can just take that, right, and throw it into, obviously our filter is going to be a lot easier. So we got this find many. We're going to have the add filter arg here. Filter arg is going to be collection ID. Type is going to be Mongo ID. It's going to be required. Search by collection ID. Query. Okay, query. All right, so we can just modify the query. And we can, right, so this is not a good example because it has too much stuff. Man, I remember seeing a really good example somewhere. Right, so the raw query value, okay. Value params. Okay, value is args. And then we actually don't care about that. So I think I can just modify that. Yes. Okay, it seems like we can just do raw query. Whoops, raw query. Collection equal args collection ID, right? I think that's literally all we want. Okay, so this should theoretically add a new filter parameter to our GraphQL backend, which would allow us to do exactly what we want. So I'm going to go to our GraphQL backend and check that. Make sure I'm not crazy. Filter and collection ID, right? And we get this collection ID. And now what are you? All right, because it's mandatory. And it actually works. Okay, cool. So this is exactly the query we want to execute. That was faster than I expected. Okay, so we got our nodes now, and we need to do two things. First of all, we need to modify this query and say that, okay, this actually, yep. So get nodes for collection, let's call it this way. I like to name my queries because then you get more explicit errors once you debug this. Essentially, it doesn't just say some GraphQL query failed. It actually says you, hey, query that is called blah, blah failed. Okay, but now we need a variable here, right? So we say, okay, so we got the variables and we got collection ID that we need to get from somewhere. I'm also gonna say skip this if collection ID is undefined, right? So now here's the thing. So we got this collection ID, which has to be, which has to come from somewhere, right? And in this case, if I do this, so if we, okay, I can close all of that now. If I go here, so we got the error because it says, hey, the collection ID is actually ID undefined, and we can say that this is, whoops. So if we do that, we should see, well, there's an error. Why is there an error? I wonder why is there an error? Theoretically, I should just skip the thing, right? Oh, is there an error because I forgot to start it? I think there is. Because why is there an error? All right, it's not even running. Okay, that makes perfect sense. There we go. So now there is no error and we don't see anything. Build that back, actually. There we go. Okay, so now when we click on that, right, we should somehow notify the nodes component that there is now a collection ID selected, right? So typically what you could do is, of course, we could say that, okay, this thing has property and then there's children. And if it has children, it renders the nodes. But that means we're coupling the components and that might not be possible in a real app. This is where you typically have the global state management, that says that, okay, in collections, once you click on thing, it will set something like Redux Dispatch, whatever, or, you know, use the context to set this as a global variable, which works perfectly fine, right? But we don't need any of that because we can just use Apollo itself. And I will show you how. Right, so there is a local state management tutorial over here, and it works amazingly well. So here's the deal. They use the client, right? So in this case, you can use it with like hook if you just access it as is. But in our case, we don't actually need that because we can grab the client from right here. It's one of the properties. Now, what we need to do next is we need two queries actually. The first one is gonna read our state, like local state, and the second one is gonna write to it, right? So we're gonna say get, let's call it get local state, right? Or maybe let's split them to make it more consistent. Let's call it get selected collection, right? And then we're just gonna say, okay, so there's a collection thing. And it's coming, so this is the pragmas from Apollo itself that basically say that this query should only be executed on client, right? And here, where's the magic happens? So first of all, to get this collection ID here, all we have to do is we have to say UseQuery get, why are you, did I forget to export that? Yes, I did. Export, okay. UseQuery. Get, come on, where's my, come on now. Get selected collection, right? And data is just basically gonna be, okay, right. So just a bit more tricky. Selected collection, right? And then collection ID is gonna be, let's use memo to just memorize it. Selected collection ID, right? If there is any, and then we're gonna basically memorize it based on selected collection. There we go. So it's another GraphQL query, and it looks as if we're querying the backend, right? The cool thing is we're not querying the backend, and we're just gonna be querying the clients. And to write it, to update it in client, we are gonna do the following thing. We're gonna use client write, and then we're gonna use our get selected. Why don't you give me auto suggestion? My VS Code is acting weird lately. Okay, so we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna say collection, or I think we called it select. Yes, we called it collection. Okay, I should probably rename it to selected collection to be consistent. There we go. So selected collection is gonna be collection, and here it was selected collection. Okay, cool. Right. Hey, Frontend Nexus, welcome to the stream. Doing good, thank you. No, I am not using TypeScript. Not a huge fan. Like, I'm not against it, but you know, it's just I don't know. I find the JavaScript is sufficient for me most of the time. All right, so now look at this. I click on that, and nothing happens because I probably screwed something up. God damn it. All right, so let us see. So this should trigger the selected collection with a specific collection, right? And this write the query. Am I doing the query correctly? Data visibility filter, yes, okay. All right, yeah, so that looks fine. Visibility filter. So we got selected collection. Selected collection. Did I name it correctly here? We got data. Oh, right. I did not. Okay, because this should be like this. Okay, that is a bit clunky, but we'll have to deal with that. Okay, so I think now it should start working, and there we go. Okay. So as you can see here, we are now using the same GraphQL queries for managing local state, and using that local state is as easy as just running around like another GraphQL query. Like, the cool thing is what I did in our project, because we had, like, you know, more than one local query or whatever, is you can actually just do that. You can say, okay, export const use selected collection, right? And then you just have this hook that returns selected collection, I guess we can just return the selected collection itself, right? There we go. So in this case, it doesn't matter. Right, so we got this hook, and obviously we need to import some stuff for this to work. So we do need, I can save that. And then once we, we just say, okay, import from, no, wait. It's gonna be GraphQL hooks, right? And this is gonna be use selected collection. So instead of doing all of that, we can just say use selected collection, and then once we get the collection, we actually just do this, which is a lot cleaner than we had before, right? So if I click that, we got the node. You get the idea, right? And the thing is that this is really damn flexible, and it basically allows you to throw away all possible, like all other state management solutions, and just rely on GraphQL queries, which is pretty damn cool in my opinion. So we got the nodes. We could do the same thing for the selected nodes, right? So we can do use selected nodes, do that here. I mean, in this case, we actually don't even need to do this, right? Because it's an isolated, nice isolated thing. So you can do selected nodes, get selected nodes. Again, this is a bit of a contrived example, but I think it shows good enough what kind of things you can build with this. Get selected nodes, and then we got selected node over here, right? And in this case, we got the nodes, right? So there's our select nodes. We want client over here. We're gonna say client write query, and then I'm just gonna copy this from here because I don't remember the format exactly. So it's going to be get selected nodes, and then selected node is going to be node, right? And then we just basically create a node component. I'm going to just copy the whole thing. We, yes, so we don't care. So we, yeah, I mean, we don't really need to fetch the information about the node, but we can do it just to showcase this essentially. So we need, export const get node, right? GQL, so we got that. And we're gonna get this by, so we're gonna fetch the specific nodes. Imagine we would only have, say, name and ID here. And here we would say, okay, we want one specific node by node ID, right? So there's node ID. Get node data, let's call it like this. Let's call it get node data because it's a bit more descriptive. And now we need to go to localhost 8080 because I cannot write GraphQL queries without any supplemental stuff, basically. Okay, so we got this. And here we say node by ID. ID is node ID, right? So we do that, node ID, and that should do it. So we just do that. And that should do it, right? So get node data. So in this node thing, we use our use selected node to get our node, right? And we get the node ID over here, and that should be selected node. So same thing here. And then we do this, so we don't need client anymore. We do get node data. We do node ID over here. We skip it if, whoops, if ID is undefined. And we don't care about that. And we just say, right, so we need to render the node itself, which in this case, we're going to have, say, so there's our name. We don't need to do this, to Excel, font bold, and then we say div last name flex text base, and then this is going to be node body, right? Right, and I have to add it to the app actually because I have not done that yet. And this is gonna be import nodes data. Let's call it this way. I mean, we can call it node as well. Why not? I already did that, so might as well do this. Okay, so now theoretically, node is undefined. So I screwed something up. See, what is node is undefined data? Right. Okay. I don't need this key here, right? Okay, so we are actually rendering the data here, but I think that's actually also not correct because what it returns from the where's my GraphQL? Oh, right. Okay, first of all, we need to do this data end, right? And that has to be in a fragment. So we only render if there is some data. And second of all, I think the data is actually not going to be you know what, we could actually do it even simpler. Say if loading error, if no data, return div, right? So we can just do that. Okay. Select this, select that, and it loads this stuff. And now the data is okay. So it's node by ID and then data. Okay, so what we could do is, yeah, whoops, that is the wrong side, dot node by ID body. So now we should actually get our test node. There we go. And that's basically how it works. So as you've seen, the code is insanely simple. So our components are purely tied to the GraphQL API, be it local one in memory or the server side. The cool thing is that, you know, like if I reload the page, it obviously resets the current state, but you can persist it. Like there are ways to persist that current version of the in-memory cache so that when you reload the page, you would still see the same thing. And yeah, that's basically all I wanted to show for today. So let me just commit that. It commits basic version showcasing how to use Apollo the client local state management. Okay, sign that. And while I'm updating the README, feel free to throw your questions or suggestions or whatever else into the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Let me think. So example of setting up local state management, yes, with Apollo client. Simple React app that uses Apollo client for local state management. There we go. Or okay, so I need the video. I think I already, yeah, right, I already have the video link, right? So let me just fire up a Discord and grab it off of there. Meanwhile, again, you know, guys, if you have any questions, suggestions, throw them into the chat. I will be more than happy to answer. So this is the URL, and the title is React State Management with Apollo. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I can just do that. That is too many SI. Okay. So Apollo client. I think we don't really have anything else but Apollo client in here, right? So where is my Apollo client? Apollo docs. There we go. I guess I can just do this. And yes, Deno release upcoming. Oh yes, definitely excited. Like, I mean, I did quite a few videos on it, and I intend to dive back in once the 1.0 comes out. There's like, the thing is, I'm really curious to see how the whole like Deno node situation will develop. So it's obvious that the compatibility with Node is not something that immediately important for the Deno team, which makes perfect sense. It's not an easy task. But on the other hand, I really like, I and a lot of other people, I think, like the approach to modules in Deno a lot more than, you know, what Node.js does, even with ES modules. So I'm very excited to see where the project goes. Okay, update README. Right, I probably should create the repo now. Hey Marco, just reposting a question. How to debug Apollo caching problems? I have not really faced the problems with caching. Like, I faced the limitations of a cache, let's put it this way. So there's some cases that are really hard to basically invalidate. Like, okay, the cache invalidation is like one of the most annoying and trickiest problems in software development in general, right? And this is exactly what I personally hit in Apollo. But for the issues when I thought it was the cache problems, but they actually weren't, what I found out works best is the Apollo development tools. So I don't know if you've seen them or not, but they basically have this plugin for the browsers that allows you, it works the same way, more or less the same way that where do I have them? Wait, did I not install, was it in Firefox? I don't remember where I used them. Wait a second, Apollo Dev Tools. So there is Apollo Dev Tools, and they work amazingly well. Like, this stuff allows you to do some really cool things. We can add it here. We can, I guess I need to restart the DevTools here. And where is my Apollo DevTools? There we go. So it hooks in them, but it's not going to work because they are not connected because I forgot to enable them. So let's enable them in when it's not in production. Right. So let me remind myself. Apollo DevTools. There is a flag you need to flip to basically enable them. But I don't remember them. Let me think. DevTools installation, connect to DevTools. There we go. So we can, where was it? I think it was right here, right? Connect. Yeah, there we go. So process env node env not equals production. So long as we're not running in production, it's going to enable the DevTools, which means that what is, come on, connecting, there we go. And no, what is going on now? Cannot read property, get, store, of undefined. I think I forgot something. But essentially, so I don't remember what did I think I missed some dependencies that it needs to basically make it work. But yeah, so this is sort of the best way to approach the debugging, at least what worked the best for me, essentially. Anyhow, let me have a look at the other questions. Let me just expand this a bit, I guess. Out of topic, do you save, for example, JavaScript code as a string or a specific format in a database? I mean, that depends on the use case. What do you want to use it for? Saving as a string is a perfectly fine, like if you want to share it or whatever. I want to, oh, CodePen. Okay, so the execution, yeah, sure. Saving it as a string sounds perfectly fine. Why not? It would probably be faster if you do something like the proper file system storing, but you know, if you're not planning to immediately host and allow like millions of users to collaborate, then it's database with strings, we're gonna be just fine. Okay, let me just go to the GitHub and push the thing until I forget that I have to do that. Okay, so what did we call our thing? We called it Apollo client example. Yep. Okay. So new repository, Apollo client example. There we go. And where's our README? Just move that a bit. All right. Example setting up local state with Apollo. Yes. That is good. Okay. Did I specify the license in package.json? Yes, it is MIT, so we're good. Okay. Pushing that. Push origin master. Yeah, sure, you're more than welcome, like, you know. Okay, cool. I think that's basically it from my side. So it was a nice 1 hour of stream or so. Yeah, pretty much an hour. Exactly. So if you guys have any more questions or suggestions, throw them into the chat right now. I'll give you a couple of minutes. If not, we can just wrap it up here and go do something else, I guess. But yeah, so the code is now on GitHub. Wait a second. Is it private repo now? Did it just create a private? Yep. GitHub, why is it private? Where is make it public? Yes, there we go. Why is it? Why did you make it private? Oh, come on now. All right. That looks better, right? So now we have it publicly available. There we go. Cool. Okay. All right. Yeah, almost made it worse just now. All right, doesn't seem like there's any more questions or suggestions. So as usual, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you learned something new today. As some of you were asking, I am gonna do at least one more code review stream. I still have a bunch of projects that you guys sent me, so I want to finish reviewing them. And then after that, we're basically gonna see how that goes. If more people send them, then we're gonna do more. If not, then there's plenty of topics out there to cover, so we're gonna do that. Yeah. And hopefully I'm going to be back to my normal streaming schedule starting this week. No more terrible migraines for me over the duration of the last week, because that was very bad. But hopefully that's ended. So, you know, I'm hoping here I can get back to the regular streaming again. So, I guess that's basically it from my side. So thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the stream. As usual, join our Discord if you want to chat about any of that, have any questions, need some help. The code is on GitHub, and the VOD will be available immediately on, well, basically all the platforms. And that's basically it from my side. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I see you next time. Bye.